Any other of the G20 countries would have placed climate change at the top of the agenda, so we'd have something to discuss when we got together in Cancun, not just discuss, but preferably on paper, pre-written agreement, a draft for an agreement that can work so our children and grandchildren have a future. And it is that great tragedy that Canada is hosting and that our Prime Minister has decreed, and we focused a lot on what they're doing to put Canada on the wrong side of the knowledgeable groups and the people who deliver maternal and child health. That's getting a lot of attention. What's getting less attention is that our government has decreed that climate change is not on the G20 agenda. I mentioned that last year, the target of 2 degrees Celsius, that we must avoid any increases above 2 degrees Celsius, was chosen at the G20 summit in Italy. It was a major topic at every G20 summit for the last any number of years. I've spoken to diplomats in Ottawa who represent the governments within the G20. And they're wondering, for the first time, they're beginning to ask the question, can the host government really set an agenda that's so perverse that we can't discuss an issue that's critical that we must discuss? Are they going to be relegated to corridors to try to catch each other to discuss climate because our Prime Minister won't let it be on the agenda? So in bookending these things, I wanted to raise the hope that here in this city we could change that eventuality, that we could actually see progress made at the G20. There's hope in the fact that the vast majority of Canadians understand this issue and understand that it really does affect whether their kids and grandkids have a future. The majority of parliamentarians get it too, which is really good news. As of last night, a private member's bill sponsored by Bruce Heyer, NDP member for Thunder Bay, actually passed the House of Commons. Not a single Conservative voted for it, but it was a pretty dicey vote. It was 149 to 136, but it passed. The Climate Change Accountability Act passed because the Liberals, although they were wobbling, again to Natalie's point, we can pressure them on health care. The pressure from the public on the Climate Change Accountability Act led to every single Liberal voting as they should, supporting an NDP private member's bill, as every member of the bloc did as well. Now that bill goes to the Senate, we'll see what happens. It is all about timelines and targets for reductions of greenhouse gases. But it does show that we can move things. I obviously plan to be in the House of Commons. I plan to be able to make a difference there. It's my fervent hope that I can get there and actually induce better behavior, more civil discourse, and addressing a whole wide range of issues that Canadian parliamentarians could address better if they talked to each other and worked together, and if they spent all their time trying to figure out how to kneecap them later. A bit of cooperation is going to make a big difference here. But we can, between now and June, and this is where I'm asking for your help, write letters to the editor, become active in writing MPs, active in phoning people, calling into radio programs, anything to raise awareness that the G20 agenda must include a discussion of the climate crisis. Otherwise, we are doing everything possible, as our government has been doing ever since, unfortunately, the current government took office, to be a saboteur globally, to stop progress where others want to make it. And our message to our own Prime Minister should be simple. If you don't want to be part of the solution on the climate crisis, for the love of God, get out of the way and allow the nations that come to our soil for a meeting in Canada to be allowed to seek solutions to the climate crisis. The political will must be exerted. And it's going to have to come, the leadership will have to come from the citizens of this country, and particularly the citizens of this city, because the governments that are coming from around the world, they're on our side. They want climate on the agenda. How many of you even knew that the G20 summit didn't have climate on the agenda before I just told you? Just curious. Yes. That's more than I expected, because it has not yet been much in the media. I've been trying to get the media to cover this issue. How many didn't know? Oh, good. Didn't know. Okay, how many didn't know? Didn't know. Oh, well, that's it. Okay. We have to get the word out. That's the first stage, is to get the word out, raise the alarm. We must, as a country, live up to the expectations, not of our ancestors, but of our babies and our grandchildren. We must, as a people, rise up to the challenge of what they ask of us, which is simple, a livable world. We can do it. We have time. And with us all working together, protecting our healthcare system, By the way, another one I really want to do is getting a guaranteed livable income so we can end poverty in this country. But we must do anything else right. We need to ensure we have a livable world. We have to get off fossil fuels. We have to break our addiction. And we have to ensure that we have a negotiated agreement that's truly global so that our kids have a future. There's really nothing else that matters. Find a way to get it known publicly that the G20, that the Harper government is saying the G20 agenda will not include climate. And this is unacceptable to us, that we want the space for climate change. So it's really trying to wake up the media to this. I think the Toronto Star is a particularly good target because they tend to have, and as we know, Torstar is, of all the major corporate chains, the one that doesn't represent the corporate point of view and say the predictable thing. The National Post would quickly tell us, and I thought the National Post deserves a new prize, by the way. The headline on yesterday's paper, only the National Post could come up with this. In response to the disaster in the Gulf, the headline was, I believe, Gulf oil's pain, tar oil sands gain. So if we're going to find a paper that might be interested in the fact that the Harper government is trying to keep climate change off the G20 agenda, target the media, raise hell about it. Facebook, emails, write everybody you know, stick it on every public posting you know, mention it to other groups, alert the activist community, and ask them to help us alert the media.
Great.
Thanks.